This is Hino's Sport, bringing you that heat and that fire. We keeping a foot on the what? On the next. We keeping a foot on the what? On the next. Now let's get on to the video, man. Errol the True Spence is going to boop, Danny Garcia's Cherry Part 12. Let me say it again. Errol the True Spence is going to boop, Danny Garcia's Cherry Part 12. Let's get on to the video. Errol the True Spence has 5 prerequisites that's going to park, punish, and stop Danny Garcia. Here are the 5 prerequisites. Errol the True Spence power. Errol the True Spence foot speed. Errol the True Spence jab. Errol the True Spence ring generalship. And Errol the True Spence ability to dominate in the ring. Let me say it again. Errol the True Spence jab. Errol the True Spence power. Errol the True Spence ring generalship. Errol the True Spence foot speed. And the Equalizer. Errol the True Spence dominance to dominate in the ring via his reach. Now let's talk about reach first. We're talking about 2 fighters. Here's a distinct advantage in the favor of Errol the True Spence and why we have to start with the reach. He is a 72-inch reach fighter. See, airfield fighters, they have an inch reach of 72 and higher. Let me say it again. Airfield fighters have a 72-inch reach or higher. The reason why they've been blessed with this reach is because it gives them a distinct advantage to keep their opponents at bay. When we look at a fight between Errol the True Spence and we look at a fight against Danny Garcia, Errol the True Spence is going to nullify Danny Garcia because of the fact that there is a 3.5% differential in the reach. This is huge in boxing, especially at the highest levels, especially at the upper echelon or the pinnacle of the sport. Because when you have 2 fighters, like a Errol the True Spence and a Danny Garcia, that are technically and fundamentally sound. Obviously, Errol the True Spence is more technically and more fundamentally sound. We're talking about Danny Garcia being one of the best welterweights in boxing, whereas Errol the True Spence is one of the best boxers in the world. Let me say it again, because what I said was so deep and profound. Let me let that marinate in the corpus callosum and in the cerebellum. Hear me? Hear me? Well, Danny Garcia is one of the best welterweights in boxing. Errol the True Spence is one of the best boxers in the world. So when we look at their technicality, we look at their fundamental aspect of what they bring from a technical and a fundamental sound aspect, Errol the True Spence is leagues and droves above the shoulders of the competition as it relates to Danny Garcia. So his 72-inch reach is going to give him a distinct advantage. Because in that 72-inch reach, we now talk about the jab. His jab starts everything. It's like Uncle Roger Mayweather said, a good jab will whoop their ass. Let me say it again. A good jab will always whoop all of their ass. And there's a reason for that. Because when you have a great jab beats all of their asses. It nullifies people. A jab can keep people at bay. Great reference, Lennox Lewis versus Mike Tyson. How do you think Lennox Lewis won that fight? Because Lennox Lewis was technically hurt. We know this to be true because at the end of the fight, he had to go to the hospital because he had broken ribs. This is how powerful Mike Tyson is. But the reason why he won that fight is because his jab saved him. So we know in boxing, when a fighter is able to use his jab effectively, it can save you. Errol the True Spence is the best jabber in boxing today. This guy uses his jab in so many different variations, so many different facets, and so many different forms. His jab can be a stiff jab. His jab can be a power jab. His jab can be a jab that can blind you so that he can throw other body shots. His jab can also be a power shot. So Danny Garcia is in for the world because Errol the True Spence is going to set everything up with that jab. Now we have to look at foot speed. Clearly, Danny Garcia is out of his league because he's flat-footed. If you guys remember, the second video of Errol the True Spence is going to Danny Garcia. I came out with the Bane versus the Batman iteration. What was the title of that second video? You fight like a younger man with nothing held back. Admirable, but too flat-footed. Let me say it again. You fight like a younger man with nothing held back. Admirable, but too flat-footed. Danny Garcia is too flat-footed for the likes of Errol the True Spence. You cannot be flat-footed fighting Errol Spence. You're going to be in for a world of hurt because a flat-footed fighter, as we saw in the Mikey Garcia fight, because Mikey Garcia was also flat-footed, Errol the True Spence can run rings and circles around you in the boxing ring. See, what people have to understand is Errol the True Spence's secondary stance is being overly slick. He doesn't get the nod for being overly slick because people are so used to him punching, right? And making his punch count and throwing it with balance, right? And him being that bulldozer, him being that steamroller, him being that Achilles. That's his primary stance, to bulldoze your ass and to steamroll your ass. But his secondary stance, as he proved in the Mikey Garcia fight, is to out-slick your ass. And this what happens when you have the ability to have that jab. You can out-slick your opponent because you can set shit up. The foot speed gives you the ability, because of the fact that there's a difference in how the speed variation is going, it gives you the ability to run circles around your opponent. This is what's going to happen between Errol the True Spence and Danny Garcia. Errol Spence is going to run circles around Danny Garcia because Danny Garcia is flat-footed. When you fight a flat-footed fighter, the problem with them is once they give you that wide flat-footed stance and you're a fighter that knows how to have what we call ring generalship, and you know how to basically control the distance, control the inches, control the spacing on a fighter, you can make a flat-footed fighter look like the worst fighter that night. That's what Errol the True Spence is going to do because his foot speed advantage. Let's just say if Danny Garcia was a 3. Have you guys ever heard of Marvel Power Grid? On Marvel's Power Grid, they have a 1 to 10 scale. The 1 to 10 scale is 10 obviously being the highest, 1 being the lowest. If Danny Garcia is a 3 on the foot speed scale, Errol the True Spence is a 9. Let me say it again. If Danny Garcia is a 3 on the foot speed scale, Errol the True Spence is a 9. That means he is 3 times faster than Danny Garcia. So what I'm basically telling you, off of Errol the True Spence's foot speed advantage, he's going to land 3 times the blows. Woo. Y'all got to let that marinate in the corpus callosum and in the cerebellum. Hear me and hear me. Well, Danny Garcia's foot speed is a 3 on the Power Grid. Errol the True Spence's foot speed is a 9. So that means Errol the True Spence is going to land 3 times the levying onslaught of tactical aggression, technical punching placement, and body snatching work. The levying onslaught of the punishment style on Danny Garcia. Now we have to talk about ring generalship. This is where Errol the True Spence is going to shine above all of the other prerequisites when it comes to this fight. Because in ring generalship, Errol the True Spence shows you he is a true alpha extraordinaire. He's governed by true alpha economics when it comes to the square circle. You're not going to move him off of center line mass. He's going to move you off of center line mass. He's going to denote that you're the beta boy supreme. You are the pure beta when it comes to boxing. He's not going to defer. So in ring generalship, he's setting everything up with the other prerequisites. The foot speed advantage, the reach advantage, the jab advantage. See, these things are what governs ring generalship. When you hear ring generalship, controlling a fighter, keeping a fighter at bay, controlling the distance, controlling the inches, controlling the measures of the fight, basically controlling the pace and dictating the pace of the fight. It starts with the fundamentals of you being able to have a jab to start everything. And don't forget, Errol the True Spence is a body snatcher 2.0 iteration of Marvin Hagler. We haven't seen a body snatcher like this since Marvin Hagler. So Errol the True Spence is going to use his body assault on Danny Garcia. This is going to be a combo ring generalship of Errol the True Spence, different variations, different velocities, and different facets on his jab, combined with his body assault. This is going to systematically break down Danny Garcia. So Danny Garcia is not going to know where to go. Now, once Danny Garcia becomes a stationary target, then we get to jump to the last shebang. And this is where the power comes into play. Errol the True Spence on BoxRec, which is a credible source when it comes to boxing. They've been around forever. They just govern themselves by stats. Let me say it again. BoxRec or BoxRecord, they are a credible source because they just govern themselves by stats. Errol the True Spence is an 80.77% KO power ratio stoppage fighter, whereas Danny Garcia is a 55.26% KO power stoppage ratio fighter. That's a huge gulf. That's a huge differential. We're talking about a 25.51% differential in KO power stoppage. So once Errol the True Spence sets up the ability that his reach ability is imminent in the fight, once Errol the True Spence sets up the ability that his jab is going to nullify everything that a Danny Garcia does, once Errol the True Spence uses his foot speed advantage to basically Bane to out Batman Danny Garcia in the ring, once Errol the True Spence showcases his ring generalship, all of those things are going to bring the creme de la creme, which is the power that's going to cause a late stoppage. I predict this fight 9th round KO or TKO stoppage because of the combination of all of these 5 prerequisites that you're going to see throughout the iteration of the fight. And in this 5th one of power, you're going to see Danny Garcia become a still target. Once he becomes a still target, we know Errol the True Spence to be a fighter that every punch he throws, he makes sure they count and he throws them with mean intentions. Let me say it again. Every punch he throws, he makes sure they count and he throws it with mean intention. So if that's going to be the case, Danny Garcia is going to be touching up so many different variations of jabs. Danny Garcia is going to be nullified by the reach. Danny Garcia is going to be out footwork. Danny Garcia is going to basically get out ring generalship. Then that leaves a fighter that's going to have to bend the proverbial fucking knee. Let me say it again. That leaves a fighter that's going to have to bend the proverbial fucking knee via 9th round KO or TKO stoppage. This is how this fight is going to pan out. I keeps the foot on the what? On the next. I keeps the foot on the what? On the next. In this case, based on the prerequisites that Errol the True Spence has in leagues and droves over Danny Garcia, and based on the key aspect or the keynote that Danny Garcia is one of the best welterweights in the world, but Errol the True Spence is one of the best fighters in the world, that alone, along with everything that was encompassed in this video, tells you that Errol the True Spence is going to what? Danny Garcia's cherry. This is He Knows the Sport. Checking out.